a community where people living with dementia can walk around, they can go shopping, they can go to the grocery store. There's a little restaurant where they can, go shopping and they can have meals with the general public. The neighborhood kids go in and do things. I'm like, that's amazing.
We at Dementia Solutions have come to notice how invaluable it is for family caregivers to learn about the stories of others. It has greatly helped families to not feel alone. Hi everyone, my name is Karen Tyrell, and today we are interviewing somebody very special in this dementia care field. I've gotten to know Andy now for a few years. We connected through his professional life, but getting to know him and getting to know why he is so involved in dementia care is fascinating to me. And he's going to share today a little bit about his journey caring for his grandmother, who was the one that sparked him to want to make a difference in the lives of others in this field. So, if you're not familiar with us at Dementia Solutions, please take a look at our website, dementiasolutions.ca, to learn more about these videos. But today, thank you so much, Andy, for making the time to share your caregiving story.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Thank you for the invite, Karen.
So let's start with when we first connected and letting people know that you reached out to me because you were referred to me through the folks at the Village Langley, because you were aware of my involvement with the design team there because you had a passion. And maybe I'll let you start with where our connection had started.
Yeah, so I don't remember exactly when that would have been. It probably would have been 4, maybe 5 years ago now. Time is all relative at this point. But yeah, I met and my team met with Elroy and the team in the village when we were touring it, and um, it was amazing, remarkable. And then they said, yeah, we can attribute a lot of the ideas and the help refinement that they had to make the village what it was to you. So that's how we got connected. I think it was Elroy Jesperson that connected us. Um, yeah, it was amazing and remarkable to get there. But the whole village concept, I think, for me was something that, really was grounded in care. It's grounded in person-specific care. And that's ultimately what I entered into this domain to do. I'm not a healthcare practitioner. I'm not a nurse. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not a dementia care provider. Um, I was just a engineer that saw a problem, and the problem was my grandmother's care, and I wanted to create a better solution. So that's kind of how I got in this space. So some people that might be in your network that they never wanted to enter into care, they kind of even in caregiving, they didn't plan on it. I didn't either. And sometimes that can really prompt us to make a big change in our life for the better.
And so you wanted to initially create a dementia village where you live in Alberta.
Yeah, so we wanted to build a dementia village here, and it's funny. I think everything happens. It's preordained, and things are meant to be. And I'm like I said, I'm an engineer by trade, and as my wife and I were lying in bed just watching YouTube before bed, and my grandmother's Alzheimer's journey was ramping up. We were starting to see increased care. And at the same time, this video showed up on YouTube for the 𝐏𝐸𝐺, so the dementia village in the Netherlands, which, was the first dementia village around the world. And I watched this video. And then right after that little video, Yvonne, who was one of the founders of the village, had a TED Talk. And I watched that as well. And I was just captivated by this idea of a community where people living with dementia can walk around, they can go shopping, they can go to the grocery store. There's a little restaurant where they can, go shopping and they can have meals with the general public, the neighborhood kids go in and do things. I'm like, that's amazing. I would contrast that to what we have oftentimes across Canada of these institutionalized facilities. I'm like, this is radically different. And at that point, my grandmother's care wasn't at the point where she would have needed to be in a facility like that. But I started thinking, what if it was? What if her care need was at that point? How can I set up a condition so that my, grandmother would be best set up? And maybe my grandmother wouldn't have even been alive when we built it. Maybe it'd be my aunt, my mom, my mother, father-in-law, one of these kind of people. How would I create a condition for them to be set up for success? So really that was kind of the inspiration for how I went down and started creating this company was we wanted to build a dementia village. The company's name is blueBell Village. The reason for it is my grandmother's name is Shirley Bell. Her favorite color was blue, and her favorite place to be in this world is in her garden. So the company was made, honor of my grandmother's legacy. And, we started with the idea of the Dementia Village, and that's where we reached out to you, Karen, was how will we do it? No sense reinventing the wheel. That y'all did it so good in Langley, so might as well learn from how it was done. So I talked to you. I've also met Eloy Van Al from the Netherlands a handful of times. So picked his brain as well as some, of the other dementia villages around the world to really try and understand how are you guys doing it and how did you guys do it? And ultimately, I think that's where this relationship and friendship has developed was from that point of, hey, Karen, can you help me with understanding what a dementia village is and how did you guys do it so successfully in BC?
Yeah, and so I know that the village isn't something that's been created as of yet. Who knows? Hopefully,
Mhm.
very soon. But I love how you decided to pivot a little bit and do what you could in your capabilities, not having to have all the outside government and all these other outside processes fit together, but you created an online opportunity to help families. And so it's called blueBell Connect. So do you want to share a little bit about that before we get into learning about your grandmother's situation?
Sure. Yeah. So, like you said, the village was the idea. The company is still named Bluebell Village. The name has kind of shifted a little bit since then. But ultimately, we all know what happened with COVID. If you're not familiar, AHS, the band really broke up. So Alberta Health Services has broken up. Uh, we all know what happened with COVID, with regulations, with taxation, with cost of building. Everything just that could go wrong with the idea of building a village did go wrong. And I think that um, the dementia village that was built on Vancouver Island is a testament to what can happen when the system comes together to support, when we co-create supports. Unfortunately, that didn't happen here, and you know what? I believe it will one day, but right now we got other battles happen here that it's not right. And I say it all the time that when something's meant to happen, it will happen. I'm not going to force it right now because it's not meant to be. But I still want to see it one day. But that being said, like you mentioned, we have this tool called blueBell Connect that was created really again to support my grandmother. So like so many others, my grandmother had multiple companion care, home care folks, and family that was going and looking after her. And what I found was that a lot of people were trying their best, but no one was really communicating. And when there was communication, it was all centered around my aunt trying to do it. And that's a problem, right? I talk about these ideas of caregiving island, and oftentimes we all try and do what we can for the person that we love. And we try and communicate with them, make sure they're okay. But we're not making sure that everyone else is communicating. We're not making sure that we have all these pieces communicating. Everyone's on their own little island doing what they can best. But that doesn't consider what happens to my wife when she's caring. Does she know what this home care and companion care experience in the morning? Not really. What about a hired companion care person that doesn't understand the specific needs of a indigenous person with frontal temporal dementia. Maybe they have some behavioral based um, issues, and you come in there and you start just staring them down like this. I need you to do this thing. How are you feeling today? Like that's not going to necessarily end well for two reasons. One, with frontotemporal dementia, as many people know, right? You sometimes don't have the ability to regulate your emotions, regulate choices. But then you also have oftentimes eye contact and certain bond language for First Nations individuals sometimes causes concerns and causes agitation. So you have this kind of compounding factor that I found that people just didn't really understand. So I'm like, how do we get everyone on the same page, but making sure we're all doing what's objectively the correct care? And
Mhm.
I recognize the complexity behind that because you and I have had a conversation with the complexity of that as well as lots of other people. And it was really complicated. I completely agree with that. But it was an idea. How do we make sure that every single person that is doing the care in the best way possible? So we built this tool really that supports caregivers, one, in ensuring that everyone communicates. If you are from, I don't know, Susie's home care company that uses a specific home care software company or a companion care company that I can't think of a fake name off the top of my head right now, but a companion care company that uses some other software, or maybe you just use Excel spreadsheet or emails or notes or something. It allows them to communicate. It allows the families to communicate. We all are aware of what each other is doing. It's so important. But the second piece is that it provides supports and recommendations, to help you if you don't necessarily know how to do it. And it kind of came up because my grandmother with Alzheimer's, she's from Winnipeg. Her dad was an MLA. There's actually a school named after him in Winnipeg, Arthur E. Wright School in Winnipeg, after my great grandfather. And so that was kind of her lived experience. They were from England and then they came here. And so the Eurocentric model of care worked for my grandmother. My other grandmother, who never had Alzheimer's, was born on Muskeg Lake Cree Nation. So radically different lived experience. And I was like kind of processing, like, what would that have been like if she was going through it? All the systems and supports and the way that I would ask the caregivers, how do you care? How do you decide what to do? We're all based on that Eurocentric model that they're taught in, oftentimes in these post-secondary programs. But that didn't align with what I often found my Indigenous community needed or wanted. And so I was like, we need to do something better. So that was kind of the catalyst for the latter part of Connect, of trying to make sure we give each other supports, because I'm not an expert in every single culture around the world, and nobody can be. So how do we build something that, adapts to what the needs of a specific person are? India is a great example of this, right? India is a massive country that is culturally diverse. You can talk about one region where they speak one specific language. Let's say Punjab, right? They speak Punjabi and they have one specific cultural and religious identity. Go over to the West Coast. I think it's West Coast, maybe East Coast, whatever. They have a place called Goa, and it's basically the tourist destination. And Goa is really primarily based on uh, Portuguese colonists. So it is a Christian, Portuguese and English speaking beach town. Really, is province
Mhm.
is what it is. The lived experience is radically different. So if we design a care epistemology based upon Indian demographic, we're not doing them a service. If we learn about what an Indian person needs, we're not doing a service to someone from Goa. And that's really kind of the ideas behind all these, and they came up. Um, I really exist in this space really to, like I said, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And I found that this is something that my family needed and the people that we hired and brought in to care for my grandmother needed. So I built it off the corner of my desk in the tail end of my MBA to support my grandmother.
And it's an app that families can download if
Yeah,
they need
yeah, a
to
web-based app.
then put everybody inside that app and all the information in one secured place, right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
so just
bluebellconnect.ca. Yep,
and then they log in and everything is in there for them. So
you
yes,
betcha.
families are needing more and more of that centralized support because they can't do it alone. You know that. We know that families can't do this alone. And so I love that you've come up with these creative ways to help families down the journey. But let's get into a little bit about, what are some of your fond or most, memorable memories with your grandmother who is now different and is affected by the symptoms of dementia? What stories come to mind or some fun things that really brought to life the reality of what it can do to a family?
I think my favorite story is we know that with like so my grandmother had Alzheimer's, and we know that with Alzheimer's is typically a degradation of cognitive functioning, right? In not just memory, but the ability to recall and process. And so when my grandmother's cognitive functioning was decreasing, my oldest son's cognitive functioning was increasing. She was, I don't know, a handful of years into her Alzheimer's journey, and my oldest son was probably 3.5, maybe. And we were there all the time. And my aunt bought these dementia puzzles, and they're still there actually now at my grandparents' house now, still to this day for the grandkids, but for the great grandkids. But she bought these puzzles, and my 3.5, maybe 4-year-old son would do these puzzles with probably 3 years old. To they would do these puzzles and with my great or my grandmother, and it was a struggle for both of them. For my son, he was struggling to, how do these pieces fit in here? I don't know. And for my grandmother, how do these pieces fit? I don't know. And it was this like teamwork, collaborative effort that was so amazing. And he's 7 now, and he still talks about that experience that he had with great grandma on multiple occasions of doing puzzles and then coloring with grandma and doing these things that built a bond. I don't know if she remembered all the specific times, but I know that he does. And I think that's what would matter to my grandmother. And I know near the end of her life she went through terminal lucidity. And if your folks don't know about it, really it's the idea near the last end of your life, you get this like for some reason you get this phenomena of recollection and memory and processing is back. It's super strange, but she was able to remember doing all these things with him, and it was amazing and it meant so much to her. So among those conversations we had, that was one of them, was the how much she valued those relational things that we did with her and him, because she had issues with mobility and things like this. So bringing him to her was great. Even when my youngest was born, she was in a chair, like a not a wheelchair, but like her lazy boy for during the day, and she would like hold him, and she'd be concerned about dropping him, but she didn't drop him. She still had a good great grandma hold on that kiddo, the preemie newborn, and but she still had on him tight. But she was so concerned, like I can't hold him. I don't know if I'm gonna drop him. I'm concerned. So we sat beside her, but she like held him in there tight, and he wasn't going anywhere. He was in there secure. And so I think for me, it was like those memories. And I think oftentimes when we approach care, we approach it with this idea of they're a glass house. We we don't want to do too many things or rock the boat because we're so concerned about breaking them or causing a problem or making things bad. But for my grandmother, it was doing those things that mattered. It was doing those things that made a difference, that whether she remembered it or not, in that moment, she was happy. And I think that's what was important, that we didn't shy away bringing my kids. They were there all the time.
Mm.
And that was what was, I think, important. And my grandmother
Mm.
was always about, family being together. And I think when I think about what is my favorite times, through Alzheimer's journey, it was just that. How do we keep us together. Even that my grandparents had their, I think it was 75th wedding anniversary, uh, 70
Wow.
or 75th wedding anniversary, and she was present, but I don't think she fully recognized the magnitude of it. So we had, all sorts of family flew in from all over the place to celebrate this thing, and old friends and this whole thing. And it was amazing just to like, just be present with her and spend the time and try and not not pretend that everything is okay because, it wasn't. But we were just present and, we just didn't treat her different. We just made her part of this day that was, celebrating her and granddad. So I
Wow.
mean, there's so many amazing memories I can draw from, but those are just a couple.
Did she know that she had something wrong, or was she the type of a person who felt that there was nothing wrong with her? She was fine.
No, she realized that there was something wrong, but she couldn't put her finger on it. So
Okay.
my grandmother was so smart. I mean, I would call her as a kid because my mom would get frustrated with me when we were doing uh English homework and spelling and these sort of assignments I would get all the time. Mom would get so frustrated. She's like, just call your grandma, she'll help you. I'm done because I was not the most receptive student. She would call grandma. My grandma would know all these words. I mean, she would play Scrabble every single day versus her computer, and we're talking like expert level Scrabble. And so that's what my grandmother did. She, when I was a
Wow.
kid, she would hate. She would play with me, but she would complain every time we play Scrabble because there was an option you go to the top of the guide on her computer when we would play, and it would be hints, and it would tell you the best scoring words. And every time I do that, and I convince her to walk away, and I press hints, and she'd don't do that. And then I'd always get a lecture about cheating in the game, and she always say cheaters never prosper all the time. That was her thing. I used to always get.
Oh.
Um, but yeah, so she didn't know that she had Alzheimer's, I don't think, but she
Mm,
knew that her memory wasn't working. She couldn't remember these things, and there was a lot of frustration of like,
mm,
I want to know this. I should know this. What is this word? I can't remember. And then she gets so frustrated and like down on herself sometimes, um, because she couldn't remember what that thing was, or she'd be in the middle of a sentence and get should have a hard time. And I think I hadn't thought about this right now. When I was talking to her, I'd always try and think about like what was the question I asked and try and keep it in the back of my mind because she might forget it, and then I have to remember what the question was and what where she was going with it, so I could help get her back on track if she lost. And I think when I talk about like my interviewing now, I think that kind of comes in now. Sometimes if people get lost with the questions, I have to remember all those things. I think my grandmother really helped train me in that from years of supporting her.
wow. And so if I had to ask you, I'm sure there was lots of tough moments on the journey for your entire family, but what was the most difficult thing for you?
I think just not having her around.
Watching her change or just
Just
not having?
not having her present the way she was.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, she was my world. I would I would spend a lot of time there. Her and I would always do things. I mean, I lived with my grandparents for a little while. That's a whole separate story. But
Mhm.
I lived with them for a while. So she meant so much. Just not having her around was
Mm.
a loss.
Yeah. And she stayed at home
Yeah,
the entire time with caregiving supports coming in.
yeah.
Yeah.
And my family was truly blessed to be able to, because not many families can. We had near the end of her life 24/7 care
Mm.
helping her out, whether it's companion care, whether it's home care, whether it's family, whether it was some friends came to visit. There was always someone with her from sun up till sundown,
Okay.
which is a significant burden. And my family was truly blessed to be able to provide that for her. But I
Hmm.
think that gave her the best life was because my family could be the same. And I think it also helped my grandfather. Um, I mean, he doesn't have Alzheimer's. He's 95 at this point, and he it gave him some connection too because he was helping look after her and doing things for her, and I think having those people in there was doing double service for him. It was engaging him cognitively because when you're a 90 something year old man as a primary caregiver for someone living with dementia, like that impacts you as well. It's not just on them. So I think having those people in there kind of also gave him some sort of connection. So um, if we would have put her in a facility, he would have been on his own, and that would have had a negative impact on him. So I'm truly grateful for the way things went as much as you can be.
Mm. And so, for those that are listening that, like to learn from each other, we like to learn from your stories. Is there any sort of lessons that you learned that were very important for you?
I think one is just to always look on the positive side of things. My grandmother was always so positive about things. Never would dwell on the negative. Actually, both my grandparents were that way, or makes my grandfather still is that way, but they never dwell on the negative. So, um, just always trying to find a half glass full,
Mm.
the way things are going that are good. Just trying to
Yeah.
look at the positive way in life. I think that's what my grandmother really largest imparted me with. Um,
Mm.
and then the idea of just keep moving forward. Like I said, we started with the Dementia Village idea, and then we have this digital tool, and now we have a podcast, and we just keep doing new things and trying new things because um, my grandmother she was a trooper, and she just always believed that we can keep doing things we put our mind to it. So um, I think that
Mhm.
her legacy really keeps, pushing me to want to do more and more things to honor the legacy she leaves behind.
It's certain she had left a huge impact on you. And so, yes, let's just talk a little bit about the podcast. So, I remember you and I, and we can find a link to attach to this video where we decided to educate together. And so, we did a webinar around technology in
Hmm.
dementia care. So, that was fun. And that was well over a year ago now. And you've been continuing ever since that time to do a podcast, to interview people who are in this realm of dementia care, whether they're professionals or family members. And so there's a link to go to for that. Maybe we can also share that. But what would that link be if people were looking for it?
You can search the Dementia Collective on all podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. It's on the blueBell Village channel. Yeah, I don't know when this will drop, but we're somewhere in the 50-ish episode range that we've
Yeah.
recorded. And it's been truly amazing. You're the first two-time guest we've had on the show. The podcast's been around for over a year. We've had amazing folks like yourself has been on it twice. We've had the dementia darling Carrie Alberts. We've had Dr. Natalie Edmonds. We've had Teepa Snow, the former governor of Wisconsin. Uh, Martin Schreiber's been on. We've had the opportunity to meet some amazing folks and talk to folks. One of the episodes, again, I don't know when this is going to drop, but um, that comes out end of August. He's a guy named Hassan Fadley, and he did 5 Ironmans in a year to uh, support, this Alzheimer's awareness. So and as they travel around Europe, he educates, and he made a documentary about it. And one of the people on his documentary was the Queen of Sweden, who is a dementia advocate in Europe. And so, like, he talked about his journey working with her and bringing awareness to kids through dementia in honor of his dad while he's doing all these Ironman races around Europe. It's been such a cool journey to meet all these kind of people. The amount of folks I've met have been amazing, and the stories have really not just impacted me, but impacted listeners. I get emails all the time for
Yeah.
for folks, that have been impacted by the story. So it's been truly a blessing. But the funny thing, Karen, is that but folks here may not, that the podcast was never something we planned on doing.
Yeah.
we wanted this webinar, but then we had a conversation of like, how do we release this thing? And we are going to do YouTube. We're like, how do we get on these other platforms? And then it just started as, let's just figure out how do we put it on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. But they won't let you just put random things up there. You have to have a podcast to create it. So I was like, just put something up and template. I mean, I would have changed the title of the podcast, had, like given it more thought, but we didn't. We just created this podcast and then put it up there, and then it went off, and we've had, tons of traction. Um, I mean, I think the largest viewed podcast, or on just the YouTube side of it, is 12 or 13,000 people viewed one of them. So that's pretty remarkable, right?
Yeah.
And it's been truly amazing and a humbling experience to, help break that stigma, because um,
And it
I
all
I just
started because of a grandson who wanted to make a difference. So I see it that way. I see it's an amazing transformation, and we definitely need more awareness out there. So I'm so appreciative of the work that you're doing, and happy to have you here on, interviewing each other again on this type of platform to help other families who may need this to hear this message.
I appreciate it. Well, Karen, all these things would not have happened without your kind of prompting. I mean, the webinar to become a podcast, and you had your hand in pretty much all the things that we've done. So I have to, you know, give thanks and credit as well to you. You've been a foundation and a motivator and a mentor in this world.
Well,
So I appreciate you.
you're the action taker, and I love that. So before we wrap up, any message you feel you want to give to families out there who are facing this journey?
I will quote Dr. Natalie Edmonds that dementia care is not perfect and no dementia care ever is. Um, I know with my grandmother, I was always trying to do the best thing. What is the best? And I'd like search and try and find this thing. And it would work for 10 minutes and then it wouldn't work. There's no perfect, there's no, this is always going to work 100% of the time. And people will decline.
Mhm.
So just because they decline does not mean you're doing anything wrong. It's just a fact. So don't hinge your ability or your worth or how well you're doing on the state that your loved one is in.
Mm.
Instead, you're doing the best you can. That's all you can do. And I think, it's easier said than done.
Mhm.
But that's kind of what I would say for folks is just that.
Love it. Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing this time with us and your experiences, and for all the work you're doing in this arena around dementia care. I'm going to send you much more strength and, um, you know, keep that motivation going, because there's so much more to do until we get a cure for all different types of dementia. And that's what I'm looking forward to someday. But in the meantime, let's continue to do what we do best, and just reminding the folks that are listening, if you are dealing with a loved one affected by dementia, please don't do this journey alone. There are resources out there. There are supports, there are professionals. Please bring them into your circle and get connected. And you can learn more. We'll leave some links below in this video. But again, thank you so much, Andy, for being here today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Karen, for having me and everything you do for us and the community.
Thank you.